Greetings to all of you. You know, from time to time, the ministry has to come up with a sermon that it's hard to give because it deals with our nation. As you look around and see our nation, what do you think about it? I've been thinking about writing a couple of articles that deals with the character of the nation of America. And the other article, if I get time to get around to it, I've been so busy, is what in the world is going on with our economy? And hopefully I can get to that, I don't know, maybe another week or so, I'm not really sure. What I want to talk today about is the collapse of the United States of America. A lot of people think that's not going to happen. You look at people in politics, they don't think that's going to happen. We have such great military might that that's never going to happen. And one thing that controls your military might is your economy. If you don't have a strong economy, you're not going to have a strong military might. They go hand in hand. But is it too late for the United States of America? Well, I don't know if it is or not, but I'll tell you this, it is a lot later than we think. It is a lot later than they think. While our government is spending millions of dollars, America is asleep. History's greatest single nation edges near total collapse. Whether they want to believe that or not, that's their problem. It is our job to warn our nation what's coming. I really don't know who will all be hearing this sermon or not. Maybe somehow, some way, somebody in the Congress may hear it and pass it on. I don't know. But if you don't think this nation is going to collapse, then you better think again. When our last president signed a stimulus package of over $700 billion, has anything changed? Not a thing. In fact, you saw the gullibility of these people taking these great bonuses. And now we're going to have another $700 billion. That is over $1 trillion. Where's this money coming from? How are you going to pay this back? A couple of years ago, when my granddaughter was about 2 years old, she already owed the government $430,000 on her debt alone, and she's 2 years old. How much more does she owe now? How do you pay back $1 trillion? What is $1 trillion? My mind can't even concept that much money. We throw it around like it's nothing, but it is. Our nation is filled with greed. It is filled with selfishness, lust for material things. Is that not true? Absolutely it is. Possessions hurting our nation. We're on the road to destruction. Is it too late? My own personal opinion, it is too late. They think that they can solve these problems with money, piece of paper. It's not going to work because our problems are spiritual in nature and you cannot solve it with physical knowledge. It's not going to happen. We are torn by war. We're torn by crime. We're torn by sicknesses. We're torn by drug abuse, ridden with immorality, lack of purpose. We have no purpose. That's why people kill themselves. I said in one sermon, they have no purpose. They don't know the cause of why there is life on this earth. In fact, I saw this in one of these little comedy shows called Everybody Loves Raymond. The dad was trying to, what he thought was explaining to his daughter the facts of life. She said, no, Dad, that's not what I want to know. She said, I want to know why I was born. Why did God put me on this earth? He looked at her and he kind of stuttered and said, what was the question again? He had no answer. And so does the people in America, and the politics, and the religious. They have no answer. They don't know why there's life on this earth. They don't have a clue. But we're filled with all these things. We're filled with greed, lack of purpose, flattering loyalty. We don't know loyalty to anything. The economic crisis is very sick. Spiritual poverty. A great nation looks over the edge into chaos. And we don't even recognize we're falling in head first. We don't know why we are. We don't know why. America doesn't know why it is. It doesn't. America has no great purpose anymore, does it? It's just there. It's just there. There's no real great goal to which we are united in purpose. There used to be a time like that. I live in the United States of America. I live in two different countries, even though I exist in the same country. When I was born in the 40s and 50s and 60s and early part of the 70s, that was one country. From the middle of the 70s to this very day is another country. I don't recognize the country I live in. I cannot turn around without running into some Gentile who cannot speak English. That makes me very angry. There is a book out, and I'm trying to find it, called The Silent Jihad. I don't know if you've ever heard of this book. And what it is the Muslim world in this country want to usurp the laws of the state and the Constitution. They don't care anything about it. To do away with them. To bring the Sharia law back into this country. You already see streets named after Muslim names. I remember when I was a young boy, I used to go to Dearborn, Michigan. Some of the magnificent homes I've ever seen, manicured lawns. Now it's overrun by Muslim. Dearborn, Michigan. All throughout this nation. There are those people, those Gentiles, which God says, those who hate you are going to rule over you. And they're there. If you cannot see this, if you cannot see the demographics of this nation changing, then you're blind. But you better wake up. Now, I'm going to talk to the church people also. We had better wake up. Things are happening at a very rapid pace. Did you not wake up one morning and see the collapse of most of the economy in the United States? You wake up again and it's going around the world, just like that. It didn't take long, did it? And we're in trouble. Thousands of people are losing their jobs on a daily basis. Not just hundreds, but thousands of people. Now, you think what that's going to involve. Think about it. Use your mind. When you don't have a job and you have no idea where your next meal is going to come from, where your next paycheck is going to come from, what is that going to do to you? What is it going to do to your mind? You have inside of you self-preservation. You're going to live, and you're going to live by any means you can find. And that's what Paul talks about in the latter days. We'll get to that in just in a minute. There is no great single bond to unify us. Nothing. There is no common spiritual dedication in this country. Nothing. In God we serve what God? Which God you talking about? And no deep transcendental purpose for which we strive for in this country anymore. My dad, if he would come back to life today, he was born in 1891. You look at this country, he was a devout Democrat. In fact, my whole family was, most of them. They would look at the Democratic Party and see what they have turned into and see what this country has turned into. He said, put me back in the grave. I don't want no part of this. To understand what's been happening to us, we need to go back. We're going to go back 59 years. That's all we're going to go back, just 59 years. When we lost the Korean War, whether they want to admit that or not, we did. Did we win it? No, we did not. Since then, we have lived through the Gary Powers incident. We didn't think the Russians had a missile could shoot that high and knock that plane down, but it did. How about the Bay of Pigs, when the so-called great president, Kennedy, failed to back those people up and allow Castro to take over Cuba? He let those people die. They were waiting on him to send troops in there. He didn't do it. So we lived through that. Do you remember the tanks? I very vaguely remember this in the 50s. The Russian tanks running down, I think it was Budapest in Hungary, to take over that nation. Do you remember that? How about the Pueblo? We still don't have that ship back. North Korea has it. How about the Berlin Wall falling down? How about the protests over the Vietnam War, which I was a part of? There's a documentary that I think it's Tom Brokaw does it, about 1968. I don't know if you really knew how close America came to collapse then. It was so close. In fact, Nixon, who was the president at that time, had given thought to using nuclear weapons to end the war in Vietnam. I can't remember what made him change his mind. I think what had happened was he began to bomb Cambodia, then the protesters started protesting against him, so he backed off from that idea. But you look, if you ever see this documentary, you'll see how close we came to collapse then. Our colleges were nothing but places where they protested and riot, and we had National Guards on the streets in Detroit, Michigan, around our nations. We had college kids being shot by the National Guards in 1968. All this take place since 1950. We have lived through the assassinations of John F. Kennedy and his brother. I happened to be in Washington, D.C. at that time, and sitting on the Lincoln Memorial, I think it's the Lincoln Bridge right across from the Lincoln Monument. All these black limousines came into Arlington Cemetery, and I was sitting there watching them all come in. It was the burial of Robert Kennedy. And so I got in my car and drove up, and I was a part of it. A part of that ceremony was watching them bury him. So we had 2 prominent people assassinated. Then we have 2 other presidents, attempted assassination of Ronald Reagan and Gerald Ford. All these things happened. Martin Luther King was assassinated, and I used to watch, this again in Washington, D.C., and I could watch across the Potomac and watch the cities go up in flames of his death, Martin Luther King's death, and also the assassination of Governor George Wallace, all this since 1950, just 59 years ago. We have seen dozens of American cities in flames, haven't we? Watched these things, tens of thousands of young soldiers, as I said, on our streets in this America, guarding our streets from our own people. Since Korea, we have seen America's cities become nothing but sinners, the center of turmoil and crime, terrible crime. I just had a friend of mine murdered last month, a few weeks ago rather. Tied him up, gagged him, threw him off a bridge. They found his body, finally found his body, and I told the deputy, I talked to him in the post office, I said, when you find his body, that you go get these 2 people, they're already in jail, you gag them, you tie them up, and you throw them off the bridge. He said, I'd love to do that, but you can't do that. But that's how I feel about it. American college campuses have become nothing but spots for riots, drug abuse, and if the parents only knew what takes place on these college campuses, especially in the big cities, you wouldn't send your child there, especially your daughter. How many girls that went to college that have been date raped? Probably hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. Some of them are reported. Simply because, especially if it's to a high, I was watching one deal with this high-profile athletic person at University of Minnesota. He had raped several girls. He had been in charge. He had a scholarship to Southern California, I believe, and they found where he raped his 13-year-old girl, and they took his scholarship away from him. In Minnesota, he took it. And he raped this other girl up there, and she was afraid to report it. And they just let it slide under the rug because they needed the money. Because if you can have a high-profile program and you can be on television, you can bring lots of money into the school, that's all they care about. They don't care about the students. And so that goes on in our college campuses today. We have firemen who try to do their job putting out fire and people shoot at them. We have police officers trying to do their job and people trying to kill them while they're trying to do their job. This is crazy. So where is the battlefield for the United States of America? It's our own land. The battle is right here. It's our own cities. Today, we're bogged down in Iraq and in Afghanistan. Our economy is on the verge of collapsing, and we think everything's going to be just fine. I don't know how much money it's costing us per day to keep that war, both those wars going. Where's this money coming from? You notice that there's no saying money don't grow on trees, but technically it does. Money is made out of paper, and paper is made out of wood, and wood comes from trees. So money does grow on trees. I guess that's what they really think. They go chop down a tree, and there's a bunch of money. And for the first time in the history of the House of Israel, we have a Gentile president sitting in the White House. I don't like that. But God allowed it. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm not an independent. I don't vote, period. But for some reason, God allowed that man to be elected to that office. In fact, he wouldn't even been elected to the office if this one person who's running for senator out of Chicago, Illinois, hadn't been caught in a sex trap, a sex scandal. He wouldn't have been elected at all. Another man would have been there instead, in his place. But here he is. He's the President of the United States, but God allowed it, so all we can do is sit back and see what's going to be the outcome of this. We've seen it all, and the toll is on us. It is very heavy upon the United States of America. Very, very heavy. Today we're going to look at 5 major vices that brought down the Roman Empire. Just 5. That's all we're going to look at. That brought that great nation down, that great empire down. There are 5 specific causes of the fall of the Roman Empire and the most outstanding characteristics of America today. Now, this is what Edward Gibbon says about the fall of the Roman Empire. What caused that? And you're going to see it goes right along with our nation today. The very first one is the breakup of homes. It happened back then. What do you look at today? I went on the internet to try and find out what the stats were on divorces in America. I can only get up to 2004. But in 2004, it was 3.6 for every 1,000 people, except for Nevada. It's 6.7 in that state of Nevada. So divorces are there. What happens when you have divorces? You have juvenile delinquency. You have teenage pregnancy. You have no father figure in the home. Now, a mother can raise children by herself, and they can come out to be fairly decent children. But that is not what God intended, because a child that is raised by only one parent is not whole. He's not all there. He or she is not all there. It takes both the father and the mother to make a child whole. There's a spiritual essence that the father puts in. There's a spiritual essence that the mother puts into the child to make the child whole. This way he's only half there, or she's only half there because of the divorce rate. And there are also people or fathers who just leave and abandon their children and throw them away like there's nothing. I'm not going to support them. I don't know how many deadbeat dads are out there who refuse to take care of their own children. They love the fact of how they brought them into this world. They just don't want to support them. They just don't want to do that. How about rapid increases in taxes? The one thing that the Caesars had to do during Rome, that every time a new Caesar came along, they had to build bigger and better structures than the one before them. So that cost money. It was bankrupting Rome because of the building project that the Caesars had to do. They were going through. They wanted to be better and greater than the one before. The only way you can do that, and the lavish parties and things they threw, is to raise taxes. I was just looking at my wife's paycheck the other day when I filled out the taxes. She paid well over $10,000 just in taxes alone out of her own check. That does not include the city taxes, your local taxes, your taxes on your car, your taxes on your food if you have that. In Kentucky we don't have that. But some items, if you like buy wasted products like pop and stuff of this nature, they're going to charge you taxes on them. But everything you buy, you pay a tax on. You're just being absolutely taxed to death. How are you going to pay off $1 trillion unless you raise taxes and more taxes? How are you going to do it? How much can people take before they say enough is enough? Just like ancient house of Israel did. That was their problem. Solomon's son wanted to raise taxes. He listened to the young squirts and not listened to the old people who had more knowledge and understanding. He didn't do that. And look what happened. They split. How much do you think the American people are going to take for these governments, for they tell it enough is enough? I've got to have money to live on. I can't keep giving you all this money and you do nothing with it. It's coming to that head, folks. How about a mad, reckless craze for pleasure? You would think, don't you? You would think that these stadiums where they play football, basketball, baseball would be empty. How do you afford to go? If you have a family of 4 and want to go see a baseball game, how do you do that? It's going to cost you well over $100 or more. I remember a friend of mine used to get tickets to watch the Cincinnati Reds play back in the 70s. We used to sit in the general admission seats. It was $4. I bet you it's $20 or $30 now. Just sit up there. Plus the things you want to buy at the concession stands. How do you pay these athletes who makes millions and millions of dollars, who are nothing but big babies, have never grown up? All they have to do is bounce a ball, kick a ball, throw a ball. And they can't do it without griping and complaining. And you got millions and millions. You let me pay me that much. I don't care if I play or not. Just give me the money. I don't care if I ever play a dime or ever a minute. You would think they'd think, no. So we love to see this. We go there by the thousands and thousands and watch. Watch on ESPN. They show poker. How in the world is poker a sport? How is race car driving a sport? How is hitting a golf ball a sport? It takes technique to hit that ball, but it's not a sport. You don't have to be an athlete to hit a golf ball, but they're paying these guys and women millions of dollars, and we love it. We love to go see these things. It's just a mad craze, pleasure, to have pleasures in life. And forget about anything else. Number 4 is a buildup of gigantic armaments, which are the real danger. But the real danger comes with inside. Rome had a buildup. If you have direct television or probably dish satellite, one of these satellite systems, if you have the weaponry, the military channel, you'll see there modern weapons that are being made. How much does an aircraft carrier cost? How much does a stealth bomber cost? How much does a regular jet fighter plane cost? How much does it cost to support a million? I don't know what the Army, the military service is, 2 or 3 million? I don't know how big the Army is or service is. How much does it cost to keep that going on a daily basis, to feed them, to clothe them, to train them, and to supply them with weapons and ammunition to keep going? A massive buildup is coming. And the fifth one that was caused the decay or the fall of the Roman Empire was the decay in religion. And look at us today, brother. We've got it today, don't we? All over the place. You cannot turn a corner without running into some type of religious building. Whether it's Judaism, whether it's modern Christianity, whether it's Muslims, or whether it's Hinduism, whatever it is, they're here in this country. They're here, and they're taking over. They're taking over. America leads the world in divorce, broken homes, and juvenile delinquents. We have more people in our prisons than any other nation on the face of this earth. And I don't mean this as a racist statement, but you look inside those prison cells when you see them on television, you tell me the race that is in those systems. Who are they? Who are they? I don't have to tell you. You can look and see who they are. How have we been taxed since 1933? How has it been taxed? We're paying everything out of our own pocket. In other countries, I think England's maybe even worse than we are. You just can't, you can only take so much. And you're going to have to say enough is enough. Another Boston Tea Party is coming, only on a greater scale, I guess. There is no nation today to the craze for the satisfaction of material possessions as the United States of America. Look at the game shows they have, if they have them anymore. Look how much money they pay these actors and actresses to do sitcoms. Hundreds and thousands of dollars, not just for one show. For one show. And we sit there and we watch it as though it is important. You look at the amount of money spent on sports stadiums. Now, I think out in San Diego, they're going to leave or build. If you don't build us another stadium, we're going to leave. How much money is spent on movies? How much do these movie stars make making movies? How about television? How much money do you think is spent on television? How about vacations? How much money is spent on vacations? And other forms of entertainment. We've got to be entertained, don't we? Money that is spent on ball players in colleges and professional sports. I think the New York Yankees spent over $400 million on 3 ball players. 3 ball players to hit a ball. That's it, to hit a ball. They are so mad to have championships in New York. What is a champion anyhow? You get a little trophy and it collects dust. And it's a memory. It's gone. Billions are spent on massive weapons of destruction. I don't know what an aircraft costs, what, $50 billion? I don't know. I know a stealth bomber costs like $5 billion. Well, that's just chump change, isn't it? To trillions of dollars. That's nothing. We got it. It's in my back pocket. I can pay that off in no time at all. While we frantically spend tax dollars to build up huge stockpiles of weapons to buy our friends off, we try to buy our friends. You can't buy a friend. You got to continually keep paying them off or they won't be your friend. They'll turn against you. But the real enemy of the United States of America is the people within our own country. No character. No character. America is known around the world as a springboard for that, more brands of religion than any other country. If you want to find a Jesus Christ that you can fit your lifestyle, open the paper. If you don't like Jesus Christ, we got a Muslim religion you can belong to. If you don't like that, we can join the Buddha or whatever you want. We've got it. Just come on in and bring it with you. This is the only nation I believe that you can travel and never leave and visit other countries and never leave this nation. You want to go to China, visit Chinatown in San Francisco. If you want to visit Black Africa, go down to the south, Mobile, Alabama, and Savannah, Georgia, and other areas. If you want to go to Israel, go to New York City. If you want to visit Poland, go to Chicago. Where are the Hebrews? Like I say, Our demographics are changing. We're not growing as we should. We're being pushed aside by other Gentile nations. And it's going to happen till the times the Gentiles are being fulfilled. Paul says in 2 Timothy 3 and verse 5 that you're America, you have a form of godliness, but denying the very power of God Almighty. That's us. That's us, and I'll show you that in a minute. That's us in a nutshell. This nation is diseased. It is sick. It is sick to the very core. Notice Isaiah, the first chapter. What Isaiah writes about Israel, or us, the United States of America. Verse 4. Isaiah, the first chapter, in verse 4 says, "Ah, alas, a sinful nation, a people laden with iniquity, an offspring of evildoers. They have forsaken the Lord. They have provoked the anger of the Holy One of Israel. They have turned away backwards." That's us in a nutshell. Is that we have this form of godliness, but here he says, you're a bunch of evildoers. Why should you be stricken again? You will revolt more and more. Your whole head is sick. That means the government. And the whole heart faints from the sole of the foot even to the very head. In other words, the entire nation is sick. It is sick to death. There is no soundness in it. There isn't. There's no soundness at all in our decision-making policies. But wounds and bruises and putrefying sores, they have not been closed or bound up or soothed with ointment. Your country is desolate. Your cities are burned with fire. Strangers devour your land in your very presence. I just told you how we've been overrun by Gentiles outside. Those who hate us are going to rule over us. And here he says it. They're in our country. And it is desolate, is overthrown by strangers. So the daughter of Zion is left as a booth in the vineyard, as a hut in the garden of cucumbers, as a besieged city, unless the Lord of hosts has left us a very small remnant. We shall become like Sodom and we'll be like unto Gomorrah. That's us. We're proud of our homosexuality. They call it an alternate lifestyle. In fact, we have a television program on satellite dish called Logos. It's a homosexual station. In fact, ABC is a homosexual station for the most part. And it's all around you, all over this place. And they're proud of this fact. That's what God says. It's time to really understand what is going to happen to this country, the collapse of this country. I don't like for our country to collapse. I don't want that. I've got 2 small grandchildren. I've got a daughter just 35 years old. Her life is just now going. And then my grandchildren are just now being born. In fact, I heard it the other day. I think I heard it the other day, yesterday. I think it was the day before yesterday. She said, "Is the end of the world coming?" Now, where'd she get that at? She's 5 years old. Somebody told her that, and I think she asked Gail one night, said, "Who's God? Where did he come from?" Can you answer that? What would you say to a 5-year-old like that? Our nation is mentioned literally hundreds of times in biblical prophecy. 1/3 of the Bible is prophecy, and a lot of that has not even been fulfilled. I guess the greatest Christian man who ever lived was the Apostle Paul. And he looked down to the future, I guess you want to say that, and saw our day. And he says this in 2 Timothy, the 3rd chapter, in verses 1. And tell me if it's going to get much worse what I'm going to read here. "This also know that in the last days perilous or strenuous times are coming. For men shall be lovers of their own selves." Boy, is that ever true. They're covetous, they're boasters, they're proud, they're blasphemers. Does it make you cringe whenever time they use Jesus Christ's name in a blasphemous way? Why don't they use Satan's name that way? He's the one that should be used that way, but they don't. They take this very Son of God and use his name in blasphemous ways as though it's nothing. They're disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affections, truth breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those who are good. Look what they did to Christ. They are traitors, they're heady-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God. That is our nation in a nutshell. That's going to happen. It's not that way yet. It's going to get that way. Neighbors are going to betray you. People who don't have jobs and want money, they need food, they're going to rob you. Just like a drug addict. They need money to keep the fix going. And when you don't have a job and the economy collapses, what do you think is going to happen to this America, to the United States of America? When people don't have ability to go out and buy food and clothes, they're going to start robbing and killing. That's what they're going to do. I think I heard that on the news the other day. It's already started. When you got thousands and thousands and thousands of people out of a job and no hope for a job, finding a job, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? God tells us that mankind would become more criminally minded. Just like in the days of Noah, they thought of evil continually on their mind, day and night. Become more criminally minded in their nature, more selfish, more greedier, if that's the word, more lustful, pleasure mad, crazed with vanity, filled with hate, envy, spite, contempt, and contempt for the law and authority. For those people who are being hear this for the first time, this may shock you. This is going to happen to our nation, folks. Are you ready for this? Are you spiritually ready for what's coming to this nation? It's time to quit kidding ourselves, is it not? The things I've just told you are real. It's time to wake up. They're happening right now to our own nation. We're not going to go on like we're going on forever and ever. And things are going to get much better. It's not going to happen, folks. It's not. And members of God's church, if you're asleep, and Paul says it's time to wake up. So you had better wake up. It's on the doorstep. It's here. Right before your eyes. These things are happening. They're real. And they're happening to the majority of people, not just the very few. And it's time that we look around and see what kind of a nation we are. And it's time to have some type of fear to see what's coming to this nation. I don't want this to happen. Hosea, the 4th chapter, verse 6. Look what it says about the house of Israel. Hosea, the 4th chapter, verse 6, it says, my people destroyed for lack of knowledge. What type of knowledge is he talking about? It's not physical knowledge, because you can see knowledge is double and tripling. As Daniel even said, knowledge shall increase. Physical knowledge shall increase, not spiritual knowledge. Why isn't spiritual knowledge being increased? What's the problem here? Look what it says, folks, and you figure it out and tell me who he's talking about. Because they have rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee. You're no priest to me. You're no minister to me, God says. Why? What's the next verse? What does it say? Seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God. Now, who does that? Who does that? Does God's true minister and true church do that? No, 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 no. It is the people who meet on Sunday who say the law of God is done away. In fact, David says, you got to act, God. You got to do something. While they're trying to make void and disregard your law, that it's void and null and done. It's done away with. Who does that? It wasn't the Gentile nations around Israel. They didn't even keep the law. And David says this in Psalms 119, I think it's verse 70. He says, Lord, your hands have fashioned and shaped me. You have given me understanding. For what purpose did God give us this understanding? David says, that I may keep your commandments. And is that what Solomon writes in Ecclesiastes? This is the whole duty of mankind, is to keep the commandments of God. And here he says, these people, I have rejected these people, and they claim they're my ministers. They're not, because they have made void the law. And that's the problem. That is the greatest problem right there. When you have a nation like we have, so frustrated and so confused as because we are breaking the first commandment. We have other gods before the true God. We are not obeying the government of God. We don't want His rule over us, even in the church of God, as Mr. Trent brought out in one of the sermons of the work of the ministry. I don't want to have this man ruling over me. You probably say, I've heard this before. I don't want to hear this no more. It's like the ancient house of Israel. I'm sick and tired of this this bread from heaven, this manna. Give us something else. And so if you're sick and tired of what I'm hearing, what the ministry's hearing, that means you're sick and tired of Jesus Christ and the Word of God. And get out of the church and go somewhere else. Because we're not going to change. We're going to continue to warn and to feed the flock, whether you want to hear it or not. We're going to do it. But he says, because you have rejected spiritual knowledge, I'm going to reject you. And that is the worst thing can happen. He said, I'll even reject your children. And the worst thing can happen to a nation, folks, is listen to me. is for God to reject you and to leave you to your own suffering. You don't want that to happen. And that is the worst possible thing could ever happen to the United States of America, is for God to reject us and not help us. And He's not going to help us until we come to a deep, heartfelt repentance. You think we're going to do that? I'll show you what we're going to do a little later. Just as ancient Rome built up huge armies to protect the vast empire from without, when the enemy was within. They corroded and collapsed within, just like the United States of America is doing. It is corroding, it is collapsing within. God doesn't have to lift a finger. We're going to do it to ourselves because we're breaking His laws. We're living outside the bounds of His laws. We're missing the mark because the ministers who claim to be the ministers of Jesus Christ said that law is done away with. Does it make any sense whatsoever for God Almighty to give laws and statutes and judgments to this house of Israel and say, now you are to be the first fruits of nations around you? When they see how you obey these laws and how you're blessed, and turn right around and do away with that, what kind of logic is that? That's not logic. That's satanic stupidity. That is the ministers of Satan the devil preaching that garbage. That the law, and look at our nation, that we kicked God out of the schools. We kicked Him out of every place. And so we're in deep trouble. Crime and violence within our land is overwhelming. Overwhelming. Jeremiah the 5th chapter. I hope I can get all this in. I doubt it. Jeremiah the 5th chapter, beginning verse 20. Jeremiah 5th chapter, verse 20. It says, declare to the house of Jacob, and proclaim it in Judah, saying, hear this now, O foolish people. That's what we are. Without understanding. They don't have understanding. I just read it to you. Because they have rejected the spiritual knowledge, so therefore they don't have understanding in spiritual things that makes things better. They just don't. Who have eyes and see not, and ears and hear not. Do you not fear me, says the Lord? Will you not tremble at my presence? Who have placed the sand at the bounds of the sea by a perpetual decree that it cannot pass beyond it, and though its waves toss to and fro, yet they cannot prevail. Though they roar, yet they cannot pass over it. This is the great God. Now skip down to verse 24. Do not say in the heart, let us now fear the Lord our God, who gives rain both to the former and the latter in its seasons. He reserves for us the appointed weeks of harvest. Your iniquities have turned these things away. You don't have this no more. Look at our weather conditions. Did you know that a lot of our food products come from the state of California? There's a great drought out there. And you know what these farmers are doing out there now, trying to find water? Witchcraft. They're trying to use witchcraft to find water as far down as 800 feet. They have forgotten the great God who created all this. And their minds have been perverted that there is no God. Everything is done by evolution. And so we're in deep trouble. For among my people are found wicked men. Boy, is that ever true. I find no difference in what the governor did than what the senators and the Congress do when these lobbyists come in there and pay them off to get their votes for these great corporations they work for. There's no difference. What's the difference? If you don't see something, if you have a computer, go to the computer and look up the article, Letter from Amos. I think that's the title of it. And you see how it fits our government today. They lie in wait as one who sets snares. That's what they did to this friend of mine who they murdered, these two people. They lie in wait for him. They set a trap. They catch men as a cage full of birds. So their houses are full of deceit. Therefore they have become great and grown rich. That's what Mr. Shelton's sermon was about. The root of money. The root of all evil. The money is the root of all evil. They have grown fat. They have grown sleek. Yes, they surpass the deeds of the wicked. They do not plead the cause of the fatherless, yet they prosper. And the right of the needy they do not defend. Shall I not punish them for these things, says the Lord? Shall I avenge myself on such a nation as this? Yes, He is going to intervene in the United States of America. He is going to cause this nation to collapse. He is going to punish this nation. in a way that this nation has never been punished before. I think the next sermon I'm giving, if I can get to it hopefully this week, is Germany in prophecy, where they're mentioned in the Bible how they're going to affect the United States of America. And I hope I can get to that. I had most of it on my computer, and I accidentally deleted it, so I have to start all over again. I hate that. I hate doing that. God said through our own crime, violence, graft, and lawlessness, we would finally go the way of ancient Rome. And that's exactly where we're heading. Ezekiel, the 7th chapter. Ezekiel 7, verse 23. It says, make a change, for the land is full of crimes of blood, and the city is full of violence. Therefore will I bring the worst of the Gentiles, and they will possess their houses. Our houses, brethren. And I will cause the pomp and the strong to cease, and their holy places shall be defiled. Destruction comes, and they seek peace, and there shall be none. That is talking to us. And also to England, but I'm dealing directly with our nation. These prophecies apply to our people today, what I just read to you. People don't care about security of our nations. The average workman thinks about winning an extra day off. Or what is he going to do if he gets a little raise in his pay? How much more these gadgets he can buy to entertain himself while he's sitting there getting fat on the couch, filling his face full of potato chips and hot dogs and everything else, and wondering why he's got heart disease, why he can't breathe properly anymore, and he's sick from the top of his head to the very soles of the feet, says Isaiah. We sit back in our nice homes and we think everything's just fine. We got a little pay raise there, we can go use this extra money and buy these little gadgets to entertain ourselves. And our personal greed grows and grows and grows. Deuteronomy 28. I'll hurry on through this. Deuteronomy 28 and beginning in verse 3. God says to us, if we're obeying Him, He said, blessed shall you be in the cities, and blessed shall you be in the country. Blessed shall be the fruit of your body that produce your, let's see where I'm at, the produce your ground, and the increase of your herds, and the increase of your cattle, and the offspring of your flock. If I want to read, blessed shall be your baskets and your kneading bowls. Blessed shall be when you come in and when you shall go out. Is that happening to our nation? Of course not. Why do you lock your doors for when you leave? What kind of, if you have your own little garden, how's it doing? If you're obeying God, it should be doing fairly well. But if you're not, you got problems. This is a prophecy. God has set before people He's either life or death. By being obedient to His laws, living in the only way that would bring happiness and abundance and real joy, He promises to give us these things that I have just read to you. The fruit of your womb, your fields will be blessed, your house and your coming and goings will be blessed, nobody to bother you. The problem is we have not been willing to obey God. That's the problem. We call ourselves Christians, but our heart is wrong. We profess Christ's name, but our nation is corrupt. We claim to be the greatest Christian nation on earth, but instead of leading the world in Christianity, we lead the world in crime, we lead the world in divorce, we lead the world in juvenile delinquency and lawlessness. And the word Christianity stepped right across the United States of America. You got to be kidding me. There is nothing Christian about this nation. It is the greatest pagan nation there is. We take the name of Jesus Christ like people do on a rubber stamp, and we stamp His name right on these pagan holy days and think God accepts that. And you people listen to it. Those who are not a part of the true church of God who may be listening to this sermon. It's time to wake up. God thunders His warning from heaven. I don't want to read that because time's running up. You can turn to Deuteronomy. You still in Deuteronomy. Read 8 verses 15 through 20. See what He says. I just don't have the time to read that right now. I thought I did, but I don't. God goes on to say, certain specific national troubles will going to overtake us. It's going to overtake us. We have increasing disease, mental disorders, upset in weather, famine, drought, and ultimately attack by foreign enemies coming to us. You don't believe that, do you? I know you don't believe that. And members of God's church should believe that. At least you better believe it, because it's going to happen. God says, my word will not return to me void. It's going to happen unless we repent. And do you think we're going to repent? Somebody listened to me said, well, who gives you the right to be right? What makes you right and the rest of the church is wrong? This is the difference. God says in Isaiah 8, to the law and to the testimony, if they do not preach according to this, it's because there is no light in them. That doesn't change. God says, I change not, lest you sons of Jacob be destroyed. There were a lot of people who used to keep the laws of God. And some vulture, as Mr. Armstrong, come along and said, you don't have to do that no more. And so they went along with this vulture, this blood-sucking vulture that took them right out of the church of God. That's their problem, not mine. They're going to have to deal with that. I also read Deuteronomy 23rd and 25th chapter, verses in Deuteronomy 28. Like I said, I don't really have the time to go through that. God says this, America is going to be horribly punished for our national sins. Well, you have them, brother. From the very top of the federal government to the president, right down to the very least of us, the mayors and the councilmen of little cities and communities are very sinful people. We have a person there in the little town of Pamela who's going to go to jail or going to have a trial right now or very soon for selling or buying votes to get elected to a little job of mayor. Whether he gets out of it, I don't know. For decades, the Church of God has warned the United States of Europe, and God would raise this up and come and attack us. We've thundered this message for years and decades and decades and decades. And I think people say, well, Armstrong preached that, and it didn't happen. They were just ahead of their time. Just ahead of their time. It's going to happen. It is going to happen. And it's going to happen to Britain and also to England, to the United States of America. Every day the United States of Europe is getting stronger and stronger while we are fat and lazy and pleasure-ridden, laying back and snoring away. We've got this great, gigantic army. They'll protect us. And God says, I'll break the pride of that power, which is our military might. Just destroy the economy and see what happens. Years ago, people are scoffing at what the Armstrong said about Germany. Right in the middle, when it was just completely destroyed, and also Japan, he said it's going to rise again. Now look at both nations. You tell me who's telling you the truth or not. They're both very powerful nations today, Japan and also Germany. And they're very dangerous nations. As America seeks into the vortex of greed, selfishness, and graft and crime, Germany and Japan, the two defeated nations, are getting stronger. As Mr. Shelton talked about in his sermon, The Love of Money, there's trade wars coming. And Garner Ted has talked about and written about that. These trade wars are coming, and it will lead to World War III. Deuteronomy 28, let's look at verse 49 real quickly. Verses 49 and 50 to 52. See what he says here. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from afar, and from the ends of the earth, as swift as eagle flies, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard a person old, or show favor to a young. He shall besiege thee by thy gates until thy high fences come down. They don't care. They don't care if you're old. They don't care if you're young. They don't care if you're going to be middle-aged. They don't care. But they're going to take it. They're going to do it. And sometimes you have to understand what a besiege is. Is this a military siege or is that outdated? Is outdated for our modern times? Because today we have nuclear weapons of mass destruction. We don't have to go over to another country to besiege it, do we? We can bomb them from here, destroy them from here. But what about a trade war? Could they do that? Could they stop buying our products because they're disliked for something we have done they don't like? Of course. Of course. Today, nations exist on this economy. It produces commodities, exploits its raw materials, and sells to other nations, and in turn buys from other nations. That's how we get along. That's how we live, by importing and exporting goods and things of this and commodities of this nature. What happens when a trade war comes? What happens? What do you think is going to happen? If you can't solve the problem, the next thing you do is start pulling out the 6-shooters. Only these 6-shooters will have weapons of mass destruction. And this is exactly what Satan wants. He knows he can't win. So the next thing he's going to do is take the entire world with him. That's what he wants, to kill every human being on this earth. When Armageddon happens, or the great battle of the day, the great God Almighty, they think they're going there to fight a sort of a physical type of war. That's not it at all. Satan has got them so deceived. They're going to fight Jesus Christ, and he is going to obliterate them. He's not coming back as a little baby boy in a manger. He's not coming back as a human being at all, folks. He is coming back, as Titus says, as the great God, a God that is angry, the God that is going to make war upon these nations who have brought great violence against the church of God down through the centuries. And he is going to take care of that problem, whether they like it or not. And they're not going to like it. It says the nations were angry because the Jesus Christ is coming back. They don't want that. They're rich. They love what they have. They love their comfort zone. They love persecuting other people and causing problems. And God's going to put a stop to it. He's going to put a stop to it. We know that in the past years, the British Empire and America were unchallenged in the field of foreign trade. But something drastic has to happen. The Marshall Plan poured billions of dollars into Europe. The revival of Germany, Italian and French industry, and also Japanese. American and Britons have been very seriously challenged in these past several years. We did it to ourselves. We no longer have the security and health of our economy, which was great at one time. It's not anymore. Because we're a very sinful and hypocritical nation, notice what God says about this. And I'm going to have to really move on here. I'll just read this one. Jeremiah the 5th chapter, and we're going to verse 15 and 17. Jeremiah the 5th chapter, and this is what God says about the house of Israel. It says, Lo, I'll bring a nation upon you far, O house of Israel, says the Lord. It is a mighty nation. It is an ancient nation, a nation whose language thou knowest, neither understands what they say. And yet shall eat up thy harvest and thy bread, devour their national product, wreck the national economy, and they shall eat up thy flocks and thy herds, and they shall eat up thy vines and thy fig trees, and they shall impoverish thy fenced cities where thou trustest with the sword. It's coming down, folks. It is coming down. Lust, greed, crime, and violence threatens our national existence. We think that we can have any type of sexual pleasure, and it's just fine. Who is it hurting? There was almost close with this. There was a report done years ago that any nation, this guy studied the nations of their sexual behavior, and any nations that did not control its homosexuality, that had perverse sexual pleasures, became a third and fourth class nation and eventually just disappeared. And that's what we're becoming. We think it's all right to be homosexual. What's wrong with that? Well, what does God say? That's the thing about it. When greedy men, lusting for personal gain, prestige and power, and unmindful of the nation's peril they're causing, we're going to go down. We're going to go down. Now, the average worker will concern himself with the average gadgets he can buy with his few dollars. This greed is evidenced by our people is only one major reason why we're going to a horrible punishment that God is going to inflict upon this nation. You can also, I won't have time, but you can read Jeremiah the 7th chapter, 9 through 10. He says, you steal, you commit adultery, you swear falsely, you burn incense to Baal, you walk after other gods whom you don't know, and come and stand before my house and call yourself a Christian. Get real, he says. You better open your eyes. So that's not going to happen. Read it in your own eyes. Jeremiah the 5th chapter, the 7th chapter, verse 9 and 10. God said, I won't accept this. I'm not going to accept this. I'm the God. I'm the great God, the creator of this universe. I'm the one you should be worshiping. unless we repent. Unless we repent, God says you're going to perish. Now, will they repent? Will they? Well, I don't have time to go through this. But you can read it in the 4th chapter of the book of Deuteronomy, what Moses says is going to happen in the latter days. He says, when you go into great tribulation, then, and only then, will you come to repent, total repentance. And God said, I'll hear you then. Isn't that a shame? Isn't that a terrible shame? When all they have to do is believe what they read in the book and quit listening to the false ministers and listen to the true ones. We're going to tell you the truth. But Moses said they will not repent until they go through the great tribulation, and they will come to know who their true God is. And then they'll have a heartfelt, deep down inside, godly repentance, and God will hear their cry and bring them out of the great tribulation. I hate to see that happen. I hate to see our country go through such a terrible thing, because I've got loved ones on this earth just like you. But Moses said they're not going to repent until they go through this terrible punishment that God is going to bestow upon this nation. The time is getting very short, brethren. Our job to do on this earth is growing shorter and shorter all the time. And we need to be about our Father's business before the total collapse of the United States comes.